Hello. I am trying to go live on my laptop and on my phone at the same time so that I can do Instagram and Facebook at the same time. So hopefully this goes okay. I got both of you guys up and running. I'll wait a couple seconds to let some people jump on. If you are new to my page or this group, I am Andrea with Happy Cloud Creations. We're going over the first block of the Cloudy Day Quilt Sampler. Not last week, the week before, I provided the fabric requirements, and that gave you guys 2 weeks to pick out all your fabrics. This week, we get the first block. Hi, Linda. Okay, good. I can see comments on Facebook. I'm going to save the Facebook one to the group. And then the Instagram one, it should be on Instagram for 24 hours. And I don't know if I can save it to the Insta TV or if that's just something for people that have a large following, because I know like you can't put links in your stories if you don't have over a certain amount of followers. Hello. Okay, cool. I can see comments on Instagram too. Hello, Flow Creations. Good morning, Judy. Good morning, Patty. So Patty, I hope you got the pattern okay today. I know you were having trouble with the fabric requirements. If anybody's having trouble downloading those, you can get them in my blog or you can get them on Craftsy. On my blog, you can click on it and it should open up a new page and give you those instructions. Craftsy, if you signed up for the fabric requirements, it'll automatically send you an email saying, hey, the new blog is ready. Hello. All right. Hi, Marlene. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Sue. I know Facebook is like, the comments don't show. Got lots of people. Barbara, Denise. Oh, good, Patty, you got those instructions. So if anybody has problems downloading those, please. Hi, Tanya. Hi, Sherry. If you guys have problem downloading those, please email me. My email address is happycloudcreations@gmail.com. And then we can work it out because I want to make sure everybody gets the pattern and you're not left in the lurch. If you guys have questions about this week's block, please let me know. This week, so last week or the week before, you got the coloring instructions. I haven't like filled mine out because, wrong one. I haven't filled mine out because I'm just kind of going block by block. I got a stack of 4th yard cuts from Stash Fabrics. I won it from their working my stash off hashtag. And so it's not fabric that I normally would have picked. And so I'm just kind of going through it and picking each block each week. So it's going to be totally scrappy. I tend not to do scrappy, so I thought it'd be nice to broaden my horizons and try something different and go a little scrappy. This week, we had the 2 downloads. We had the block 1 instructions, which is 2 pages. So you should have got 2 pages with that download. And then I also provided a Flying Geese supplemental. So if you like making your Flying Geese 4 at one time, you don't need this. This is just if you're like, hey, I hate Flying Geese 4 at one time. I'd rather make them 1 at a time or with half square triangles. This PDF, you want to download this PDF because it'll give you all the cutting instructions for every week. It has the 2.5 by 4.5 inch geese, the 3.5 by 6.5 inch geese, and the 4.5 by 8.5 inch geese. This week, we are doing the 3.5 by 6.5 inch geese. Hello, Lori. Hello, Hiko. Hello, Lynn. So, yes, Sherry, you should have got them in your email. I sent out the email like at 5 a.m. West Coast time. So if you're not signed up for my emails, you can still find it in my blog, which is happycloudcreations.com, or over on Craftsy. You could Google Craftsy Happy Cloud Creations, and that will that's like the second result on Google. Flow Creations, this is the first block. So the 2 weeks ago I did the fabric requirements, and today is the first block. So you just joined just in time. So happycloudcreations.com is where my blog is, and you can find the block there and the fabric requirements there too. Hi, Anne. All right, so make sure to let me know if there's any questions throughout this. I will try to make sure I can, 2 different screens, it's kind of like, okay, make sure I'm not missing anything. Hi, Shannon. Hi, Terry. Hi, Debbie. Wow, lots of people are joining me this morning. I wasn't sure since it's in the middle of the week during when most people are working, you know, so not all everybody can join me, you know. So I guess I will just go over any tips that I have about going through this block. I know some people are new to the 4 at one time Flying Geese. That's my favorite method if you're making 4 or more. If I'm making 6 geese for a pattern, typically I will do the 1 4 at a time, and then I'll do 2 1 at a time. Hi, Michelle. So I will kind of go over that right now. And then I'll also go over the 1 at a time for those people that are using the Flying Geese supplemental. Really quick, I don't want you guys to be like, oh, this video is so long. So I'll try to go quickly. Morning, Shawnee, Maribel, Melody, and Lori. So many people today. I'm so surprised. This is nice, having a big group. Okay, so you'll want to take your large piece of fabric, which this week is a 7 1/4. I've already sewed mine on, but you take that. Typically when I don't know if you can see the line. It's really faint. When I iron it, it kind of shows up a little bit better. So what I do is I will actually mark the diagonal line on these squares on the back side before I lay it down on the large piece. That way it's not moving at all. And then once you have both marked out, I just lay it on here and I put pins. I pin it down, and then I take my, I have a 1/4 inch foot. If you don't have a 1/4 inch foot, my 1/4 inch foot gives me an exact 1/4 inch scant seam. Some people are like, what is a 1/4 inch scant seam? A 1/4 inch scant seam is basically a 1/4 inch, but it also includes the width of your thread, and it also accounts for when you fold that open. That takes up a little bit of fabric. So when you're ironing that open, you need a little tiny bit less than a 1/4 inch. So I take my foot and I line it up on my drawn line. What I used to use this disappearing ink, but they'd always dry out and you don't get much use out of them. So I started using this hair marker, which is, it just does an increase in your fabric, a little indent, and it doesn't go away until you wash it really. And then you're not wasting just buying lots and lots of these pens, which is nice. This was only like $4.50 on Amazon. And so I make my line with that, and then I sew a 1/4 inch on both sides. I don't know if you can see, I'll show on my laptop. See how I did a 1/4 inch? See, 1/4 inch from both sides. So it's a scant 1/4 inch. My foot gives me a scant 1/4 inch. If yours, you're not sure, you can take 3 pieces of fabric, say 3 2.5 inch strips. Sew those 3 2.5 inch strips together. That center strip should be 2 inches wide, because once you press it open and it accounts for the folds in the fabric, it should be 2 inches wide. So if you're not sure, I would do that test. If you've never made the 4 at one time Flying Geese, you might want to use scrap fabric. I use scrap fabric for this demo just because I wanted to show you all the different steps. So once you have the 1/4 inch on each side, you'll cut this down the center, which I forgot to grab my scissors. So let's pretend like it's cut. And then when I go to the iron, I like to finger press it open. Well, first you want to say, okay, here's my cut one. First you want to set your seam with your iron. You don't want to move it around. You just want to press. And while you're pressing, you want to try to keep this line as straight as possible. If it starts warping, that's not good. Try to keep it as straight as possible, and that'll make your flying geese not wonky. And then I finger press it open, and as well, keep this line as straight as possible when pressing. That'll give you a nice flying geese that isn't weirdly shaped. I also recommend when you are sewing your seams, go slow over the pins, especially. I don't take my pins out, but go slowly so your seams are accurate. You like the hair marker too? Yeah, Michelle, the hair marker is good for quilting too. It's $4.50. I would invest in it, you guys. Totally. So you want to keep that as straight as possible, finger press it open, and then when you iron it, press. No motion. You want it straight and no steam. I usually just do a dry iron for that. Sometimes steam can make things a little wonky, and you don't want it to be wonky. And then once that's done, you'll take another square that has a line. Our large square was a 7 1/4, and our small ones are 3 7/8. Since this is a no waste flying geese, you have to do that 7/8. If you round up, it won't work out right. You'd have to round up both pieces, the 7 1/4 and the 3 7/8. If you want to be precise, you do the 3 7/8 and the 7 1/4. And then we put our square in the center with the line drawn, and we'll do another 1/4 inch scant on both sides of this seam. When I'm sewing it, I know it's pretty close to the 1/4 inch scant. If my you're on Instagram, if it's lining up right at these, can you see that right here and right here? That's where your thread will be lining up. Where's my camera? Right here. So your thread will be lining up at these little triangles right here and right here. And that's how you'll know that these are 1/4 inch. It's lining up right at these triangles. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions. Hi, Lisa. I like how Instagram or how Facebook tells people's real names. On Instagram, we just got a bunch of usernames. So Marla, hi Marla, and hi Where the Red Fern Sews. I like that. I like that handle. So once you do that, you'll cut this down the center, which again, I don't have my scissors. I use scissors. Some people like to use rotary cutter. And with this again, let's pretend I cut that seam. You'll just take the iron to it, set your seam, and then you will press it open with your fingers, and you'll press it. And there is very minimal to trim off of these. Once it's all pressed and flat, there'll be some little ears, little dog ears here in the corners, but very minimal when you're doing these 4 at one time. But I still like to go through and measure them and make sure they all come out to that 3.5 by 6.5 inch. So if you're using this supplemental, does anybody have questions about the 4 at one time? Because I'm going to move over to the 1 at one time. Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Anita. Hi, Faye. Hi, Kay Pittman 4. So if nobody has questions about the 4 at one time, I know there's a little delay. Morning, Debbie. So I will go on to the 1 at one time. So if you're doing the 1 at one time and you're using the supplemental, or you're doing the half square triangle one, you'll want to look up here, and it tells you what pieces not to cut in the pattern. Because we have our pattern, and it says in our pattern, you need 1 color C 7 1/4, and you need 4 color E 3 3/7. So if you're doing the one at a time, don't cut those pieces from your fabric. You're going to want to cut 1 3.5 by 6.5 and 2 3.5 by 3.5 per flying geese. So total, you're going to want to have 4 of the 3.5 by 6.5, and you're going to have 8 of the 3.5 by 3.5. And basically with those, really simple. The only tip I have for these is you lay right sides of fabric together. When you're doing quilting, you always do right sides of fabric together. You draw your line, and I like to actually button my needle up, line it up right on the outside of the drawn line. I don't go on top of the drawn line because sometimes that drawn line is too thick, and when you go to fold your flying geese open, it ends up being too much of a seam, and your flying geese is not perfectly rectangular. So I like to just line up, I'll show on each camera, on the side, if you can see that, of my drawn line. The laptop one is, I'm not used to. So you just on the outside. So you're going to want to sew it toward the outside of that drawn line. And then you cut that off. You're going to want to set your seam. You always want to set your seam. It kind of melds the thread and the fabric together, and it gives you a nice crisper seam. And then you'll finger press it open, and then you'll press this one again. Again, dry iron is best, and not a lot of motion, just pressing. Oh, Linda, you've never done the 4 at one time? I like it. It's so much quicker, and I'm all about saving time since I have very, very little sewing time. The only times I sew are when my kids are sleeping. So like today, I woke up at 4, made my husband's lunch, he left. I did my blog, email, all that kind of stuff. And then my daughter woke up and she's all, oh, I want to sleep in your bed. And I'm like, no, not today. I need to sew my blog. And so I'm like, go back to sleep. So I usually sew when they're asleep, and they get up at like 7:30. So 4 at one time saves a lot of time. Hi, Gwendolyn. We're just getting into it, so you haven't missed much. So Annabelle, you're doing the 1 at one time. So yeah, so once we get to the step, press it, and then you're just going to want to put your next one back on. And yeah, I pinned the first one too. Sorry, there's no pins in that. I draw my line again, I pin it, and then I just sew toward the outside of the line, not far out from it, just right next to it. Because if your drawn line is too thick, you might not be sewing in the right area. If you're using a hair marker, this line is a little bit thinner. You just want it pretty close. And then when you open that up, once you cut it off, press it, finger press it open. I like gently finger pressing things open instead of opening it with your iron, because if you open things with, like, open the seam with your iron and press, it's going to make things not as straight and crisp. See, look, there's like hardly anything to trim off of a 1 at one time. Maybe, no, not really anything. So this one, it will probably give you a more precise flying geese than if you are new to the 4 at one time. I know 4 at one time sometimes can take some practice. So you might want to do your very first one on some scratch fabric, just so that you're not ruining your beautiful fabric. Does anybody have questions with the 1 at one time? Hi, Mal. Hi, Lisa. So we got our 4 at one time flying geese done. Next, you're just gonna do 3 squares to make your bottom of your little house, I guess I would call it, little house. And I like to press, all my arrows are suggestions, pressing suggestions. So if you have a darker background fabric than your print, your little house, you may want to press the other way just so that you're pressing. I like pressing to the dark, and I like pressing to the least bulk. So make your little house, which, you know, you're always doing right sides of fabric together, and make sure when you're sewing them together that your seams are consistent. You don't want to veer off and have a smaller seam at the end and bigger seam in the center. Go slower if you aren't getting good seams, you know. I'd rather go a little bit slower and have a nicer turnout in your block than speed through it and, you know, veer off at the ends and then they don't line up correctly. So once you have that 3 at one time block, the 3 block, just sew it right sides together. I like pinning mine. I'm a pinner. Some people don't like pinning. There's nothing really to nest on this one, so you can have either side up. I like to typically have seams up. That way when I'm sewing it, if my foot tries to push it up, it's easier to flatten it and get it under my foot. So then once that one's done, I just set the seam, not iron, press, finger press it open. And it could probably go either way as in bulk for this one because you're not going to be nesting any seams on either side of this block. So we got a little house. Isn't that cute? Oh, I don't know why my Instagram is pausing. Okay, there. Sorry. I don't know why Instagram just paused. I've never done an Instagram live before, guys. So we got our little houses. Little quilting board up here. And then next, we're going to make our corner blocks. So our corner blocks are basically, first you sew these 2 together and you sew these 2 together, and you're going to want to iron. I say iron to the darker. So you're ironing this one to the darker and you're ironing that one to the dark, which is going to make your seams go in opposite directions, which is going to make these 2 fit together like a little puzzle when you're going to sew them together. If you, let's see, you can see those are fitting together like a little puzzle. If you can see that. And you can even feel when you lay them on top of each other. I kind of just nest them right up next to each other. That's why it's called nesting. And then I will put pins in it and sew that. Go slow over bulky areas so that it doesn't try to move around. Lisa, so if you iron and use a lot of motion, it can make your seams not as straight. If you're just pressing down, nothing's going to move around on you. Your fabric won't stretch and it won't get all weird. Ironing sometimes can make your fabric stretch out and make your seam not as straight. Or like when you're doing the seams open, it might actually pull this open so you can see the little threads of your seam, and you don't want that either. So that's why I finger press mine open before I actually press it, because that way you don't have those stretched seams showing. Oh, awesome, Cheryl. You like the 4 at one time Flying Geese? It is pretty easy once you get the hang of it. My first time I ever did it, I think I rounded up the squares, but not the big square. And so it didn't turn out right. And so the next time I did the precise 3 7/4, this was a long time ago, and they turned out perfect. Do you have an iron recommendation? Not really. I just bought like the cheap one at Target. It was probably like 20 bucks. I do recommend ones that you can turn the steam off and then turn it on, because the one I had before this, you couldn't turn the steam off. So I ended up having just to let my iron be dry with no water in it, and then I would use a squirt bottle. But then when I'd go to iron my husband's shirts, it'd be like he wanted me to put water in there, and I'm like, ah. So I like the ones that you can actually turn the steam off of. So I don't have any fancy iron. So we got this piece done, the corner blocks. We got our little houses done. And the next one is basically the center block. So if you're doing your correct seams, when you sew these three together, these three center squares, my depth perception is really off with this laptop one. It's like, okay, so you'll sew these three, there we go, these three together. It should be exactly 6.5 inches if your seams are a correct 1/4 inch scant. If your seam is too large, this will end up smaller than 6.5 inches, which wouldn't be good because then it won't line up with your other pieces in your block. If you're scared about having too large of a seam, you could always make these squares 2.5 by 2 3/4, just so that it is long enough, and then you can trim the whole thing down. When you're doing that correct scant 1/4 inch seam, it'll be all correct, and then this won't be a weird shape. I do always recommend, once you finish this block, once you sew these together and sew the top and the bottom on, measure it, make sure it's 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches. If there's little pieces that dart out, I like to trim those up, make everything square. It just makes your whole block go together a lot easier, if you don't mind. So it's kind of like, what do you want your, how precise you want your block is how much work you want to go into it, I guess. If you really don't care if it's a little wonky and not completely square, I guess you don't have to do that, but I prefer to cut off any little bits. So we got this center square done, and you'll end up starting to sew all the 3 rows together. So if you see my diagrams, we got this block together and this block together. So then you'll sew, I like doing the whole block at once. I chain piece everything together at the same time. Chain piecing is when you, so I'll sew this block on, and then I will, instead of taking this out of my machine, cutting the thread, I'll sew this, and then I'll just stick this right in my machine right after, so that I'm just chain piecing everything together. That saves a lot of time and saves thread. So, you know, you will need to nest these. They don't have to be perfect, because it's not like you're going to notice if they're a tiny bit off. I did nest them, so that, which means, so making sure they're going opposite directions. I think in the directions it has you press this out and these ones out. So if that happens and you're like, I don't want to repress it, you can always just kind of fold one over so that they can nest. Because I know sometimes when you do a pattern that has the same exact block throughout the whole quilt, all your seams are going to be going the same way. So I just take this fabric here and fold it over so that it will butt up and nest, if that makes sense. If you wanted to go ahead and cut all the small squares for the corners and rows, how many will you need? Are you talking about just for the corner blocks, LaShawn? Well, I don't have them in front of me, the correct amount, but if you're just wanting to do the cornerstones, I might wait, because next week's block cornerstone, I'm going to show you how you can do strip piecing for that one. Since it's for, where is it? Right here. Since it's for, it's 2 navies and 2 grays, I'm going to show you how you can just sew 2 strips of fabric together and then do your squares from those. It saves time. Since I'm doing scrappy, I'm going to just cut my squares. You could just look, if you want an exact number of those, I don't have the number in front of me, you could count on this picture, I guess, or on your coloring sheet, how many in each block. Because if you notice, these ones have the large blue squares, the 4 corners in the center. So that's 4 times 5. 20. And then you would have, well, I guess 4 times 5 times 20 times 4. No, yeah, 4 squares, 5 blocks, 20. And then you would have 20 of the navy in that one as well. And then the other ones are going to be you can either strip piece or you can do the little squares. So if you want to cut ahead, I would do that. Or you could just cut a strip of the navy and a 2-inch strip of that, or a 2-inch strip of the gray, and just like hold on to those and not try to cut anything else out of those. If that makes sense. Your directional fabric is right on. Is there a way to check before we sew it together when using directional? So I didn't do directional for my Flying Geese, but I'm wondering if it would end up all going the same way, because like that one's going to be facing upward. No, I think that one would be facing sideways. I don't know. I guess you could place them so that they were facing all the same direction with the 4 at one time, or you could just do them all one at one time if you're using directional. I'm not a big stickler for directional prints. This one is really, it goes either way in this directional, so they are all facing the same. So I don't know. I don't typically use directional, so the only thing I would worry about is half square triangles and the Flying Geese to make sure they're all going the same way. Hope that helps. Yay, Joanna, you're excited. Yes, the navy, LaShawn. So instead of cutting out a bunch of squares, you might just want to cut out the navy strip and was that your question, right? Yeah. To do the strip piecing, which I will show you guys next week's block, I'll just strip piecing for those. That way you're not cutting out like a ton of squares. Yeah, so I wasn't sure. Judy, the gray looks okay. So the silver. So yeah, I'll get back to the block really quick. So once you have all your strips together, you nest your seams and you sew all of them together. Woohoo, you got a block. So I wasn't sure about this because the white is so close to the gray, but I think there's enough contrast that it gives you an okay color. I don't usually use low volume fabrics. I usually just use darker colors and lighter colors, something that really contrasts with white or gray. So this is really new for me. This quilt is going to be a first in a lot of ways. So since I don't have my finished block, let's see if I can find it on my quilt. So I started quilting this on Saturday. So I didn't get very much done. But so here we have our finished block. There we go. Ta-da! So this one obviously has no directional fabric because it is all solids. But yeah, next week, the middle block, I'll show you how you can do strip piecing for these corner blocks so that you're not having to cut out a bunch of 2.5-inch squares, even though I'm going to just because mine's super scrappy. With this one, I actually cut out strips. And then since I did the whole quilt, you cut out like one strip of blue, one strip of gray. And sew those 2 strips together. And then you cut your 2.5-inch strips from that, if that makes sense. I'll show you more about that next week. Is there any other questions? Are you saying these are the colors in my home? These are actually, I kind of went with Pacific Northwest colors. You know, you got your green and your blue for Seahawks, and then I just mixed in a light blue, blue, green, and gray for Seahawks, I guess. And then I mixed in the dark green in the light blue. This isn't, I think this is going to be a gift for someone, so I probably won't keep this one, just because if I keep all the quilts that I make, we'd have the hugest pile of quilts in my living room. Let's see. If there's no more questions, let's see. Let me see. So Laura, you do the strip piecing too? Yeah, especially for the cornerstones, that'll make it a lot easier if you do the strip piecing as well. For the cornerstones, I'll do 3 strips, you know, so 3 strips together and then subcut that. It makes it a lot easier and goes together a lot faster. Yay, Judy, I'm happy you love the quilt. Yeah, Joanna, this is kind of like a teal and a gray, I guess. I do like blue. It is my favorite color. So my husband is like, oh, pick out a color paint that you really like. I don't care what it is. And then so I'm like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then I picked out that bright blue for the kitchen, and then now I'm kind of regretting it. Probably should have just painted it a light gray and been a normal person, right? Do you recommending using Best Press after the block is finished or something similar? I was going to mention that. So I don't use starch. I know if people do use starch, they typically will spray their fabric before they cut everything out so that your pieces are really nice and crisp. If you're worried about your Flying Geese being wonky, that might be a good idea to use starch. I never use starch just because I never have, and I don't want to get my iron all gunky. Maybe I'm just weird. I probably would use it and I would love it. But yeah, if you like using starch, I don't know if you need to do it before and after. I think you might just need to spray your fabric before you cut it out. Also, 70% off batting by the yard at Joann's with coupon. That's an awesome deal. Cornerstones are the ones that the jelly roll is being used for. If you're using jelly roll strips, which are basically 2.5-inch strips, yeah, you can use those for the cornerstones, because the navy color really is the only one that has 2.5-inch pieces. So if you want to choose jelly rolls for that, you could. You could also use them for these, all the navy basically, these navy to these navy, so they all match. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. I haven't shown my fabrics yet, as I had just decided this morning, and it's a girlyish Green Bay Packers. Oh, cool. Strange for Canada, but it will be a gift for my cousin that is a huge NFL fan. Yeah, so like that's what I typically will pick out fabric colors for the person that I'm making the quilt. And I thought this one, the person that I'm making for, they would enjoy these colors, hopefully. But yeah, it kind of reminisces of Seahawks, except for the light blue and the dark green. Everything else is kind of Seahawks. Hello, Anita from London. Isn't it like the middle of the night, or is it only 6 o'clock there? 6, 7? Yeah, so I'm basically done. So I will save this to the group so you guys can rewatch it. I know you can't rewatch it until I'm actually done. So I guess that's it, unless anyone else has questions. The next block will be released next Tuesday, hopefully by 5 a.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time. I'm going to try to get it out early to you guys again. I'll release it on my blog. I'll send out my newsletter letting you know. I'll put it in Craftsy, and then I'll post it in the Facebook group, on my Facebook page, and on Instagram. So all my bases get covered. And then I will do another live video next week at 10 a.m. just in case anybody has questions. I don't know how much I'll have to go over it. Maybe I'll just do a quick go through. Since we did the Flying Geese this week, we probably don't need to do them again next week. I don't know. I guess I'll ask when I'm on there next week to see what you guys think. Thank you everybody for joining me. I'm so happy I wasn't talking to myself today. It's really nice. I don't know how this Facebook and Instagram works because it's hard, like, am I looking at you? Am I looking at you? Since they're both kind of right next to each other. So I hope you guys don't mind that I'm not totally looking at you guys at this whole time. So I guess I will say goodbye for now. If you have any questions, you can always tag me in the Facebook group, on Instagram. You can send me a DM. You could ask a question in under one of my pictures. Or you can email me at happycloudcreations@gmail.com or contact me on my blog too, which is at happycloudcreations.com. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great day, and I can't wait to see everybody's blocks. If you're on Instagram, hashtag use cloudydayQAL, or you can use the hashtag happycloudcreations because I want to make sure to see those. You can also tag me in the picture. And in the Facebook group, make sure to post your pictures in the group so I can see them in there as well. I know a lot more people are following along in the Facebook group. So if you guys are Instagrammers and you have Facebook, you might want to jump over there and look at people's fabric selections. I know not everybody has Facebook, but there's a lot larger following over there. I think there's the group is up to 1,500 now. So I'm not sure if everybody's participating, but a lot of people have been posting their fabric. So if you're stumped on what fabrics to use, you might want to jump over there and just check it out. So you guys have a great day. I will see you guys next week. Happy quilting. Goodbye. Gotta end these lives now.